Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the John Campea Show here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an honor and a privilege, as it is every day, to have you guys joining me here as we talk about all of our favorite things, movies and television, what's going on in the world and all stuff like that, where I bring some topics that you guys submit into me. Now, here's how today's show is going to go. I have picked out 5 topics that you guys emailed into me. I'm going to go through those 5 topics. How do you get a topic or a question on the John Campea Show? It's really rather simple. You just email me anytime at john@thejohncampeashow.com. Once again, that's john@thejohncampeashow.com. Send on in your question and maybe you'll see it pop up here. Remember to put the word topic in the subject line. And once you put the word topic in the subject line, remember, keep your emails to 90 words or less. Now, after we get through those 5 topics, we're going to go over to live questions. And there's 2 ways you can get live questions on the show. Number 1 is you can send in a tweet. Now, just wait till we get close to the end of the show before you start sending them in. But you can simply tweet to me at John Campea, and I will get to just as many of those tweets as we can. But also, if you're watching live, you can also get a live question on by using the super chat function, and I will get through every single super chat that you send in. You can send them in right away. I will go through them in the order that they appear. So with that out of the way, something has come up here. So you guys know that for some time there have been reports that Disney has been in discussions with Fox about buying some of Fox's assets. Well, according to CNBC, they are reporting that Disney and Fox are actually getting close to finishing their deal, and possibly there could be an announced deal as early as next week. That's what they're claiming right now. Now, they also say, keep this in mind, this is very important. One of the other things they say in that report is that Fox is still in discussions with Comcast, the company that owns Universal. They're still talking to Comcast. So that's still a possibility as well. But according to the report, they are having more active discussions with Disney, and they could be closing in on a deal with Disney. Now, here's specifically what it says here. The deal contemplates the sale of Fox's Nat Geo, Star, regional sports networks, movie studio, and stakes in Sky and Hulu, among other properties. What would remain at Fox includes its news and business news divisions, broadcast network, and Fox Sports. What's important to keep in mind here is that, and I still see a lot of people misunderstanding this. Some people think Disney is buying Fox. Disney is not buying Fox. There's a big difference. They are buying some of Fox's assets, as we just listed. Fox is still going to be around. Fox, the broadcast network, is still going to be around. Fox News is still going to be around. Fox Sports is still going to be around. Fox, if this deal goes through, is still going to be a thing. Disney is not buying Fox. They're simply buying some, or a whole bunch, really, of their assets. And the reason that's a big deal is people saying, oh, so if Disney buys Fox, then you can have the 20th Century Fox thing appear at the beginning of Star Wars movies again. No, you can't, because they are not buying Fox. They're buying some of Fox's assets, and they'll repackage them and repurpose them however they want to do it. The best analogy for this is like this. Let's say your name is Terry McGillen, okay? You're Terry McGillen. Great, Terry McGillen. And you decide to have a yard sale. Well, I come to your yard sale. I'm not buying Terry McGillen. I'm not buying you. I can't now go to the bank and say, I am Terry McGillen. No, I did not buy you. I bought your toaster oven, your old hockey bag, and a bunch of your 1980s porn magazines. That's what I bought. So now I own those things. I can't say, Terry McGillen is here to play hockey. No, you just bought some of the assets. I didn't buy your name, and that's one of the things to keep in mind here with this whole Disney deal. George Osi just put in a super chat, just donated in and didn't even put in a comment. Thank you so much, George. That's really generous of you. I appreciate that. But the thing is, the reason this is an important distinction is to keep in mind about what it is Disney is buying, if they buy it, and what they're not. It's also important to keep in mind what Disney said about this whole deal, which is that they are looking to buy assets for their upcoming streaming service. Disney is going all in on this streaming service of theirs in 2019. They are going all in. And that includes this. Now, the other thing that CNBC is saying in that report is that the price tag is going to be in the neighborhood of $60 billion. $60 billion is a lot of cheddar. So it's going to be a really huge deal. Let's see if it goes through. There's a long way to go between now and then. A lot of different things can happen. And a lot of people ask me, John, what happens to Deadpool 2? I'm not really sure. I'm positive that it still goes through and it comes out as is. What happens to the X-Men movies that are in production? I'm sure they go through and happen as they are. But what happens to these X-Men properties and what happens to Deadpool? How will they be handled after that? Will Disney then integrate X-Men into the MCU? Will they keep them as a separate universe? These are all questions we'll address in the coming days. But for now, there are just reports saying that Disney and Fox are actually getting close to a deal. Could be announced as early as next week. And we will keep our eyes on that as we get closer to it. All right. Let's move on to the first official email today that you guys have sent in to me. And the first email today comes to us from Jerry Montgomery, who writes, I was one of the people who got frustrated at the Frozen short that played before Coco. Loved Coco, and the short wasn't bad, but at north of 20 minutes long, it just made for a lot longer evening for the kids than I was banking on. Did Disney actually hear the complaints and pull it from the screenings? Okay, well, thanks a lot for the question, Jerry. And I'm sure a lot of you guys know about this by now, that, of course, in front of Coco, as is the tradition of Pixar, they will play a short film. But normally their short films are between 2 and 4 minutes long. This Frozen short was like 21 or 22 minutes long, and it got a lot of people very frustrated and angry. So what just happened in the last day or so is that Disney has pulled the Frozen short from in front of Coco. Now, if you go to Coco, you're going to just see Coco. You're not going to see that 20-plus minute Frozen thing in front of it. Now, the question becomes, did Disney listen to the fans, or was it something else? Here's the thing. Disney is now claiming that, oh yeah, we're pulling Coco, but it was always intended just to be for a limited time. That's what Disney's saying. I don't know that I believe that, to be honest with you. I don't think, I love Disney. Everybody knows I love Disney, but I don't know that I believe that, because I think if they always planned on it being for a limited time, they would have said, for a limited time, come out and see Coco this week, because it's only for this week or these first 2 weeks. You'll get to see this 20-minute short Frozen for free in front of it. They didn't do that. At least I don't recall. Maybe they did and I just missed it, but I don't recall them ever saying that this Frozen thing was going to, for a limited time, play in front of Coco. I mean, I think all the other ones that they had play, I think all the other shorts that play in front of Pixar movies, they play for the run of the film. I think this is a situation where Disney heard people complaining, and to Disney's credit, they decided to do something about it. They said, well, you know what? People are saying they're not happy with this. Fair enough. Let's pull it out. Maybe we made a mistake doing that. Let's pull it out. That's the type of company Disney is. Now, here I'm saying, I think Disney's lying when they say, oh, we always intended it to be for a short period of time. I don't believe that. I think they're just very sensitive to the audience. And if the audience says to them, we don't like this, then Disney's a very responsive company. And they go, okay, you've spoken. We're going to listen. We'll pull it out. And that's what I think happened here. So I think all that uproar about this extra, like on top of the 20 minutes of trailers, now you got this 21 or 22 minute thing. If your movie said it started at 7, it's really starting more at like 7:45. And if you take kids to a theater, that's a long freaking time to keep a bunch of little rugrats in place, right? So, or, you know, as my other friend calls kids, lovable mistakes. That's just what he used to call them. I thought it was funny. Anyway. So that's a long time to keep those lovable mistakes in line and keeping them from getting too rowdy or getting bored or getting antsy, whatever. That's a long time. So kudos to Disney for listening to the audience, because that's what I believe happened. I believe Disney listened to the audience. They weren't planning on pulling this early. I think they're just saying that to save face when they don't need to. I think there's loads of credit to them for listening to the audience. I think that's good. All right, let's move on now to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Hussain Shah, who writes, hi, John. Congrats on the 100,000 subscribers. Just waiting for the other 900,000 to find your fantastic channel. Well, thank you so much, Hussain. I'm wondering your thoughts on Netflix's Oscar chances. Do you feel they'll have a chance, or does the Academy just have a prejudice against online streaming? They're releasing a film a week next year. Surely one will get recognized at least. Well, thanks a lot for the question, Hussain. And, you know, this isn't about quantity, though. Look, first of all, remember, most of these movies, like for instance, take the movie that's out right now on Netflix, Mudbound. Very good movie. Very, very good movie. Remember, this movie wasn't made by Netflix. It was made by film industry professionals, and nobody else picked it up, and Netflix did. I think Netflix paid like $12 million for it to have the rights to distribute it on Netflix. So this is film professionals, and their colleagues are in the academy and all that kind of stuff. The question is not about quantity, because like as you mentioned, like starting next year, it looks like Netflix is going to be putting out an original film every single week. And you've heard me say that aside from a few exceptions, a few diamonds in the rough, Okja, Bright is coming out. That looks like it could be pretty good. Beasts of No Nation was pretty good. There are a few diamonds in the rough, but for the most part, all of Netflix's original movie stuff has been crap. Like total garbage. But anyway, Mudbound's an exception. I don't really think it has anything to do. Filmmaking professionals are filmmaking professionals, and they will vote for other filmmaking professionals. And I'll be honest with you, while I thought you could have made an argument for Idris Elba to get a nomination for Beasts of No Nation, I thought the category was so packed, I didn't have a problem with him not getting nominated. I would have been totally good with him getting a nomination, but at the same time, the category is so packed. It was that, and while I loved Beasts of No Nation, I mean, I didn't feel like it deserved a Best Picture nomination. I thought it was great. I loved it. I didn't feel like it deserved a Best Picture nomination. So, no, this has nothing to do with the Academy being prejudiced against streaming. No, filmmaking professionals just want to get paid. They don't care. Most of the filmmaking professionals, they don't care if their movies get shown on the big screen, small screen, streaming, whatever. They just want to get paid and make money. And if Netflix is there helping filmmaking professionals get paid and make money, that's great to them. They love it. Fantastic. So now you mentioned that, hey, you know, Netflix is putting out a movie a week next year. Surely the Academy's got to recognize something. It's not about quantity. It's about quality. It's about quality. And right now, there's a big question about whether or not Netflix is putting out anything that's quality enough to be deserving of Academy Award nominations. Mudbound has a shot at a couple, but I think Mudbound's great. I loved Mudbound. Not sure it's going to end up in my top 10 of the year, but it's really good. So if it doesn't get nominated, I got no problem with it not getting nominated. Okja, there's a couple of categories that Okja is in the running for. Again, I really like Okja. Not in my top 10 films of the year. So, I mean, I wouldn't nominate it for Best Picture, but it's really good. So if it does get nominated, it'll get nominated because it deserves to get nominated in some categories. If it doesn't get nominated, it's because it doesn't deserve to get nominated in certain categories. I really don't think there's that big of a distinction between them. But thanks a lot for the question. All right, let's move on now to the next topic. And the next question comes to us from Victor. And Victor writes, "Hi, John. Awesome show. Thank you so much, Victor. Super baffled by 20th Century Fox's decision to fire Bryan Singer from the Bohemian Rhapsody movie, especially after reading Singer's comments about needing time for family health issues. Is this a smart move by 20th Century Fox? Why not keep him on board in some advisory capacity whilst bringing in a co-director who can complete shooting? Something doesn't add up. Thanks." Okay, and for those of you who have been paying attention over the past 24 hours, or longer really, earlier this week, reports came out that Fox suddenly had to halt production on Bohemian Rhapsody, the Queen biopic, because of what they put in quotes, the unexpected unavailability of Bryan Singer. From there, a bunch of stories started to come out that Bryan Singer, out of nowhere, throughout the production of the film, was just not showing up. Like, just wouldn't show up to set. Wouldn't be there. Then more stories started to come out that this hasn't just happened on Bohemian Rhapsody. This has happened on other films of his, where sometimes Bryan Singer just doesn't show up to set. He just doesn't show up to work. Now, according to the stories and the reports that I've been reading out of Deadline and Variety and The Hollywood Reporter, Fox sat down with him and very sternly told him, hey, on Bohemian Rhapsody, none of that, okay? None of that. You show up. You show up to work. Now, the stories then go on to report that because Bryan Singer would out of nowhere just not show up throughout the production of this movie, the lead actor of the film, Rami Malek, I believe his name, the guy from Mr. Robot, him and Bryan Singer got into it. I mean, they had a massive falling out. Now, there's some people reporting that The problem wasn't that Bryan Singer wasn't showing up to work. The problem is that him and Rami Malek are having problems. No. Him and Rami Malek were having problems as a result of Bryan Singer just not showing up to work. That's what caused the problems. Now, Bryan Singer says they worked out their differences and they were fine now, and I got no reason not to believe that. So that's cool. So then Bryan Singer puts out this statement, Fox just wouldn't let me go and take care of my sick parent. That's the problem here. And here's the thing. Everybody knows I'm a big fan of Bryan Singer when it comes to his work as a director. When it comes to his work as a director, I am a big fan of Bryan Singer. All right. I love his X-Men movies. Usual Suspects is in my top 10 favorites of all time. I think Valkyrie is a tragically underrated film that he did with Tom Cruise. I think that movie's magnificent. Not so much Jack the Giant Slayer, but I mean, I'm a big fan of his. But maybe I would be more inclined to believe this thing, Fox just wouldn't let me go and take care of my sick mom or my sick dad. Maybe I would believe that more if it wasn't for the fact that there seems to be this long pattern of this behavior. This long pattern of him just not showing up. He just doesn't come to work. If it wasn't for that, I might be more inclined to believe him. And I have a feeling Fox, who has a long, deep, rich working history with Bryan Singer, they have worked a lot with Bryan Singer, and they're involved in a lot of stuff with Bryan Singer. From, Bryan Singer's a producer on Legion and The Gifted and all that, and their upcoming X-Men films. And Fox, I do not believe for a second, if Bryan Singer, who has worked with them for over a decade and is involved in all this stuff, said to them, my mom's really sick, I need to take a few weeks to go take care of this. Why would Fox, considering how deeply entrenched they are with Bryan Singer, just go, no, we're not going to let you do that? I can't see that happening. What we do have, though, is a long documented pattern of this kind of behavior from Bryan Singer. And finally, Rami Malek was having problems with him. Apparently, one of the other co-stars in the movie quit the movie, and then he was talked into coming back because of the way Bryan Singer was conducting himself on set. And it's just to the point that, I'm sorry, I don't buy it. I'm sure maybe one of Bryan Singer's parents are currently ill. I'm sure he's not lying about that. But that doesn't excuse the long pattern of behavior that we've been seeing going on here. And if that's the case, as big of a Bryan Singer fan as I am, I got to call it as I see it. And the way I see it is he deserves to be fired. Now, I mentioned this on a video yesterday. Whether this firing is a slap on the wrist from Fox, or whether this firing signals a broader separation from Bryan Singer. Like, are they going to remove him off all their X-Men stuff and they're not just going to work with him again on anything else? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But as far as all this goes, I'm not sure I buy Bryan Singer's explanation for this. And maybe he's telling the truth. And maybe that's totally true. And maybe Fox has some explaining to do. But on this, with all the history and the long pattern of behavior that we've seen, with him just not showing up to work, I tend to agree with the studio on this, and it was time to let him go. So, I don't know. I'm sure there's a lot more news and a lot more stuff that needs to come out about this. I'm sure we'll find out more in the coming days. Let me know what you guys think about this whole thing. Jump into the comments section and let me know your thoughts. All right, let's move on now to the next topic. And the next topic comes to us from ZRJRO, who writes, my question was, could Tarantino's Star Trek be rated R, since most of, if not all, of his movies are? All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. And for those of you guys who didn't hear, last night a story broke. I did a quick video of it on the YouTube channel as well. A story broke on Deadline that Quentin Tarantino pitched the idea, an idea he had for a Star Trek movie, to J.J. Abrams. J.J. Abrams went to Paramount, if I'm remembering this right, went to Paramount. They liked it. So now J.J. Abrams and Paramount are setting up a writer's room to take that idea of Quentin Tarantino's and see if they can turn it into a movie. The idea is that if it all works out, Quentin Tarantino would then direct that Star Trek movie, which has got everybody buzzing. I mean, everybody, imagine that. Quentin Tarantino directing a Star Trek film. And we know Tarantino's a Star Trek fan, so it's not that far outside of their own possibility, but Tarantino's always seemed to just do his own movies. He doesn't do existing franchises. He does his own movies, which makes it fascinating to me about the idea of him possibly doing a Star Trek film, because I would love it. I would love to see a guy like Quentin Tarantino stepping outside of his comfort zone and doing something that's a little uncomfortable for him. And let's see how he functions in that type of environment. I think it would be fantastic. But now, ZRJRO's question is, well, what's the possibility of it being rated R? Because all of Quentin Tarantino's movies are rated R. It's important to keep this in mind, though. While Quentin Tarantino would be directing it, if this all works out, and that's a big if, it is still primarily going to be a Star Trek film than it is a Quentin Tarantino film. Tarantino's directing it, but Star Trek is a 50-year-old franchise. Star Trek comes first. And Star Trek, I don't believe Paramount has any interest in making an R-rated Star Trek film. Which, once again, makes it really fascinating for me to see, hey, Tarantino only seems to be comfortable doing R-rated stuff. Can Tarantino step outside of his box? Can Tarantino step outside of his comfort zone and stretch himself a little bit as a filmmaker and do this pre-existing franchise, sci-fi, and he can't make it rated R? Can he do that? I believe he's the type of storyteller that he can do it. I believe he's the type of creator and artist that he's going to thrive in the challenge of it. And I don't believe for one second that Quentin Tarantino is afraid to step outside of his comfort zone. That I don't believe for one second that Quentin Tarantino is afraid to step outside of his box. This very defined small box he's had, I only do my own films and they're rated R and this is the way I do them. I think he's enough of an artist and I think he's fearless enough that he's willing to step outside of that comfort zone and try something like this. And if he does, I can't even imagine how great the results could theoretically be. I mean, it could be spectacular. So I do not think there's any chance it'll be rated R. You never know. You never know. Paramount has had some struggles recently. Maybe they're willing to do something different, but I really have a hard time believing they'd be willing to put, really take their franchise and do something like that with it. So I don't believe it's going to be rated R for a second, but maybe you guys think it will be. Jump down to the comment section. Let me know why you think it would be. All right, let's move on to the final emailed in question today. And the final emailed in question today comes to us from Rebecca Vanderween, who writes, I'm seeing a lot of excitement for Avengers Infinity War. The trailer was just amazing. But after the recent choke job of Justice League, should we be nervous that Infinity War could crash and burn like it did? Why should we feel confident that Avengers will work where Justice League failed? All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. And look, I completely understand where you're coming from, Rebecca. Completely. We saw the trailers for Justice League. We got all excited. You know me, I was saying it's going to do this and it's going to do that. Turns out I was wrong. But, so why should we feel confident that, an Avengers Infinity War will come through and deliver on our expectations, whereas Justice League was a choke job, essentially, where it stumbled out, didn't even hit $100 million opening weekend. It's not going to hit $700 million worldwide, I don't think. Maybe it'll surprise us. Maybe it'll have a late surge, but it doesn't look like that's what's going to happen. It's going to end up, instead of being the number 1, number 2, or number 3 biggest comic book movie of all time, it's going to end up being the number 22, 23, or 24 biggest comic book movie of all time. And it's Justice League, for heaven's sakes. So why should we expect that an Avengers will succeed where Justice League failed? I think there's a couple of reasons for it. Reason number 1, to me, is that right now, Marvel is built on a foundation of success. Success with critics, success with audience, and success with the box office. That's important to be all three. Because you can make an argument, and I've had this debate with people on Twitter, that DCEU has had financial success. I mean, Batman vs. Superman made into the $800 million range, but that should have been a $1 billion movie. Easy, but it made it in the $800 million range. Suicide Squad made north of $700 million. It overperformed. Wonder Woman made over $800 million at the box office, so there's that. Man of Steel did well for the first film they had out of the gate. So you can make an argument that they had financial success, but they crashed with the critics, other than with Wonder Woman, and they were divisive amongst the audience. And those two things are the reason why Justice League flopped out of the gate in its opening weekend at the box office. Because you can say, well, the early DCU films were successful. No, they weren't. They were successful at the box office. Yes, they were. Absolutely, they were. They should have been more successful, but they were successful. And as I said, Suicide Squad overperformed. But they failed with the critics, and they failed to get consensus amongst the audience. They were divisive amongst the audience. And the result of that has been this. The result of that is Justice League opening to $94 million. That's an indictment on how the DCU has failed up until this point. Now, there are some of you like me that you've enjoyed all the DCU films so far. I've enjoyed all the DCU films. Go back and watch every review I've done for them. I've given all of them positive reviews. I've liked them. But just because I like it doesn't mean we stick our heads in the sands and ignore the problems. Whereas Marvel, on the other hand, they've had financial success. They've had big critic success with the odd stumble here and there. And they've had big audience success. The audience loves these films. The audience loves going out to these Marvel films. And since that is the foundation that Marvel's coming off of, we can instantly, safely assume that Avengers Infinity War is going to deliver on a much higher level. So that's reason number one. They're based on a foundation of success. DCU with Justice League was based on a foundation, a very shaky foundation. Some financial success, not so much with critics, not so much with the audience. The other reason I think we can expect Avengers Infinity War to succeed where maybe Justice League has failed is the fact that the Marvel Universe has a corporate structure behind it that is dedicated to its success. When you look at Marvel and the background of where Marvel is with their movies, you have a cinematic universe where Marvel itself and Disney above them are totally committed and unified in their vision under the leadership of Kevin Feige, a totally unified vision of the direction that cinematic universe is going and 100% commitment to doing everything they need to do to make sure that that cinematic universe is successful. Whereas Justice League, what did they have behind them? They had a corporate structure where all the executives were infighting because they couldn't even decide which way they thought the whole thing should go. They had them changing their minds back and forth just over one movie, let alone their entire cinematic universe. And then if that report in the Wrap is to be believed, you had upper leadership who were sabotaging their own film just so they could get a bigger bonus check. Marvel, unified vision, 100% corporate commitment to doing everything possible to make their universe successful. The DCU with Justice League, they were hamstrung by a disunified leadership in the corporate structure and upper leadership in their structure that was not committed to the feature film success, but rather committed to their own bonus checks. And I think when you take those two big things into consideration, I think, yes, there is pause, there is reason to be a little bit concerned when we look at what happened with Justice League and thinking, could the same thing happen to Avengers Infinity War? Sure. But if you take into consideration that one had a foundation of success, one had a shaky foundation, one has a unified and committed corporate structure behind it versus a just chaos and a corporate leadership behind it that's more interested in making their own bonus checks than supporting their films, that should give you more confidence in where Avengers Infinity War is going to be going, where it's going to be heading, and I don't think you can emphasize that enough. So I think those are two very, very big reasons why we can at this point believe, hey, look, Avengers Infinity War could come out and totally suck. It totally could. Absolutely it might. But if you're asking why should we feel confident that it'll deliver where Justice League wasn't able to deliver, I think those two reasons are pretty important. Things to keep in mind. All right, guys, thank you so much for those emailed in questions that you guys sent in to me. Now we're going to get to the live questions. Once again, two ways you can get a live question on. Number one, fire in a tweet. You can start sending them in to @JohnCampea. A second way is to use the Super Chat. I noticed a whole bunch of you guys have already sent in Super Chats. I will go through every single one of them that you guys have sent in. Now, right before we get to those, it's that time of the show for me to do my 1-minute commercial break where I do my shameless plug for the one thing that keeps the lights on around here, which is the Patreon page. So we'll be back in just 1 minute. Check this out. For those of you who have followed me for any period of time, you guys know that I made the decision recently to leave the corporate overlords. I no longer wanted to work for corporations. I wanted to be an independent content creator. And the only way I've been able to do that is by the support of my Patreon supporters. So what I would like to do is to ask you guys who watch my shows, who spend any amount of time with me every single month, to consider going over to www.patreon.com/JohnCampea. There you'll get all the information about what exactly does it mean to be a Patreon supporter of mine? What does being a Patreon supporter do for helping to make sure that shows like this one and all the other shows I do here on my channel can actually be produced? And on top of that, what benefits are there to being a Patreon supporter? And maybe if you guys can check that out, if you decide you want to be one of my Patreon supporters, that would be awesome. And if you don't, that's perfectly fine too. I'm just happy that you guys have decided to be here today and be a fellow movie fan and join us in the conversation. So go and check out the website, see if you want to become a Patreon supporter. And now let's get back. All right, and a special thank you to all of you guys who are already Patreon supporters of mine. Thank you so much. You really have no idea. And by the way, guys, a couple of the benefits of being a Patreon supporter. Number one, we put out audio-only podcasts of the John Campea Show, of Weekly Hero, and of Star Wars Talk Tuesday. So that's available to them as well. And we do a short little John Campea after show on our Facebook group that's exclusively for our Patreon supporters after the main show is done. We go a little bit deeper into the subjects we talked about today. Just a couple of benefits for you guys to consider. So thank you to you guys who are Patreon supporters. All right. Now let's go over to the live questions. We're going to start off with the questions that have come in on Super Chat. And we're going to start at the top here with Zach Remsburg, who writes, "Hi, John. Thank you for lighting a passion for movies in me." Oh, thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. You started a lifetime of movie appreciation. You deserve 100,000 subscribers and all your success. Thank you so much, Zach. I really appreciate that. And for those of you who maybe have not been around for a little while, last week, a week ago, we crossed the 100,000 subscriber mark. Actually, we're closing in on 103,000 subscribers now. We've added almost 3,000 new subscribers in just a week. Thank you so much, guys, for your support. All right, let's go on to the next super chat that came in from Henry Stevens, who wrote, "Hi, John from the UK. Hey there, Henry. Prefer this time. Do you count the Disney animated movies as a cinematic universe? The makers have said the films do connect. No, I don't. I don't consider them a cinematic universe at all. You can say, oh, in this back channel way, we kind of connect. No. If it's not clear and obvious that it's a shared cinematic universe with characters crossing over with each other and all that kind of stuff, then in my opinion, it's not a cinematic universe. It doesn't matter what they say they've secretly done behind the scenes. Doesn't matter to me. If I can't sit in the theater and clearly see the shared cinematic universe, then it's not a shared cinematic universe. In my opinion, maybe you feel a little bit different. It's all subjective. All right, let's go on to the next question. Comes to us from George O.C. And George just sent in a super chat. Thank you so much, George. I appreciate that. The next one comes to us from Chechny-Gian1, who writes, "Hey, John, watch every day. Even if I disagree, you always got a well-reasoned argument, except for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And you know what? That's important. The important thing is not that we agree with each other. That's not the fun of being a film fan. What fun is it if we always agree and think the exact same thing? Like, what's the point of that? It's fun that we disagree. The point is that we can share different ideas and share different perspectives. That doesn't necessarily change your mind, but give you a better understanding about what your position is, whether that's in agreement or disagreement. That's the fun part. I've always said it's not my job to sit here and say things that people agree with. What's the point of that? Too many people try to do that. I do not. And as far as Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I'm sorry, man, I even just watched the first part of the new season where they're in space and all that kind of stuff. It's like, I just cannot get into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I've tried, and I keep watching it week after week because I'm a sucker for this type of stuff. But I just can't get into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Keep telling me why I should like it. I want to like it. I just cannot get into it. Next one. Alan Gonzalez Cordova just sent in a super chat. Thank you so much, Alan. I really appreciate that. Lycan Zero writes, "Hey, John, it's odd that Netflix puts out a bunch of crap movies, but inversely seems to put out more good series than not. Thanks and have a great day." Well, I mean, look, and Netflix has had its struggles with some television series they did. Remember they did that Jason Momoa, what was that called? Frontier? The one they did with Jason Momoa? I didn't mind it, but most people didn't like it at all. I think it got canceled. They just announced like a few weeks ago, like 9 shows they've canceled. So they have their struggles as well, but they also put out some great stuff. Making a movie, I still contend, is far more difficult. Making a good movie, let me rephrase. Making a good movie is far more difficult than making a good television series. Because with a television series, you've got 13 episodes. You can take your time, you can do this, you can pace it however you want, blah, 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 blah. And it's still difficult to make a good television series, or else every TV show would be great. So clearly it's very difficult. But with a movie, you've got roughly 2 hours, 2 hours and 20 minutes to introduce your characters, give them context, set up the plot, bring it all to a resolution, and wrap it all up at the end. And you got to do all of that in 2.5 hours. That is a monumental task. That's why I keep telling people that it is one of the most difficult things in the world to make a good movie, which is why we should celebrate good movies so much when they happen. So, yeah, I'm not surprised that Netflix has, therefore, a little bit more success with their television properties than they do with their original movies at this point. I think that's to be expected, and I think Netflix does a pretty good job all the way around if you really think about it. All right, next one comes to us from Jay, and Jay writes, what are your thoughts on Altered Carbon trailer? You know what? I haven't seen it yet, so I cannot give you my thoughts on that. Do me a favor, remind me for the show tomorrow. I'll see if I can check out that trailer and I'll give my thoughts on it. But as of right now, I have not watched it. Thanks for the comment, though. Chris Miner writes in, where do you rank Tarantino among the greats? Top 10? Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, Tarantino gets into the top 10 all time. He's not on my Mount Rushmore. But I do think there's an argument to be made that Tarantino should be in the discussion for one of the 10 best filmmakers of all time. I mean, his resume is just outstanding. I wasn't a fan of Hateful Eight, but I mean, his resume besides that is almost impeccable. I mean, they're just so great. I love his filmography, and I'm really excited to see what he does with this new one that's just called Number 9 right now. The one set in the 60s and 70s with the Charlie Manson murders as the background of the story. I'm really fascinated seeing what he's doing. He's going to be doing it at Sony Studios, the first film he's doing without the Weinstein Company. That's going to be fascinating to see how that all turns out. All right, next one comes to us from Stephen Rowley, who writes, hey, John, huge fan. Thank you so much. I was wondering if you ever saw Wonder. As someone who grew up with disabilities, I thought it was done really well. I'm hearing nothing but magnificent things about Wonder, and I'm finally getting around to seeing it tonight. Or is it tomorrow night? I can't even remember my own schedule. I'm seeing it in the next 48 hours. That's one of the movies that has slipped under my radar as I've been rushing out to catch things like Darkest Hour and the Disaster Artist and all these other films, and going back to see Justice League over and over again. I've let some films slip under my radar. Wonder is one of them, but I am going to be running out to see that in the next 48 hours. But I'm hearing nothing but magnificent things about it. And I'll admit, I didn't love the trailer. I didn't think the trailer looked more like a ABC after school special to me. But I am hearing fantastic things about it, so I will check that out really soon. Let's see. Andrew Wong writes in, Marvel will stop killing DC if both moms were Martha. Why did you say that name? By the way, guys, I put up a video on my YouTube channel. I encourage you to check it out. It's called In Defense of the Martha Scene, or Defending the Martha Scene. Just search Defending the Martha Scene in YouTube. You'll find the video I did, where I actually defend that scene. I think that scene, maybe they could have done it a little bit differently, but I think most people just misunderstand that scene. I actually think it's quite a good scene. But the way they did it, I get why people make fun of it so much. I do, and I make fun of it sometimes too. But if you're interested in seeing my defense of that scene, just look up Defending the Martha Scene on YouTube. You should be able to find my video there. Check that video out. I encourage you to take a look at that. But thanks a lot for the comment, Andrew. All right, Crimson ID4 writes, the scary part isn't that Justice League might not catch Doctor Strange or Man of Steel. The scary part is on that list you showed, where the next 6 movies below Man of Steel is Big Hero 6. Good Lord, can you even imagine that? Yeah, and it is scary to me. The notion that Justice League might not even make as much money as Doctor Strange? What? What? Can you imagine walking into a room of DC fans, myself being one of them? Can you imagine yourself walking into a room of DC fans a year ago and saying, hey guys, when Justice League comes out, it may not even make as much as Doctor Strange. You would have been tarred, feathered, and laughed out of the room, and I would have been doing some of the tarring and feathering and laughing at you. And yet here we are. It is possible it may not catch Doctor Strange. That's really kind of weird. Anyway, next one. Edgard Romero writes in, which celebrity are you most excited about running into this Saturday when you attend the Star Wars premiere? 4 more sleeps till the Star Wars premiere on Saturday night. I am so stoked about it. Anne has been dress shopping. Maybe tomorrow I'll show you the dresses Anne has been trying to choose between. I've got to run out and buy a new suit, I think, for it. I'm so stoked and excited for this. It's crazy. I think the person I would most look forward to bumping into might be JJ. JJ is one of the guys I did not bump into at the Force Awakens premiere. And I think I would love to bump into J.J. Abrams. I bumped into a lot of other people there, but I would love to be able to, like, I hung around and talked with, you know, Dave Filoni. I got to stand around and talk with Kevin Feige. I got to stand around and talk with a number of people, but I would love to bump into J.J. Abrams. That's who I would like to bump into. Okay, let's see here. This next one comes to us from Nathan Freeman, who put in $100. Nathan Freeman, thank you, man. And you didn't even put in a comment. Email in a comment, email a question to me. I will make sure I put your question on the show tomorrow. Make sure you email me, and I'll even have milk delivered to your house for free. What that means, I have no idea. But thank you so much, Nathan. I appreciate that a lot. Next question comes from Kevin Bennett, who writes, if either Daniel Day-Lewis's or Meryl Streep's career were erased from existence by Thanos, which would you save? Sophie's choice. Oh my God. Oh man. Okay, Thanos comes to Earth. Maybe, what if that is actually the real plot of Avengers Infinity War? Thanos has come to Earth to erase either the careers of Daniel Day-Lewis or Meryl Streep, and you got to save one of them. Okay, you know what? This is a Sophie's choice. I will save Meryl Streep's career. Here's why. And I think some of you will agree with me on this. Meryl has put out a lot more movies, so we'd actually be saving a lot more films. Daniel Day-Lewis is infamously picky, like does one film every 3 or 4 years. Meryl Streep's been more prolific. She's put out a lot more memorable films. So I would choose Meryl Streep, just because you're saving more of Hollywood history by doing that. But oh man, that's a great question. All right. Just a couple more, and then I'm going to go over to the Twitter questions. This next one comes to us from Punisher 20001, who writes, can you imagine Tommy Wiseau in a comic book movie? Thanos, I did not take the Infinity Gauntlet. I did not. Oh my God. By the way, guys, if you have not seen The Disaster Artist yet, because I know it's playing in some select cities right now, check out my review for The Disaster Artist. The Disaster Artist is wonderful because it's not just a 2-hour movie making fun of Tommy Wiseau and his buddy Greg Sestero. It's not, you'd think that that's what it was going to be, just 2 hours of making fun of these guys who made this movie. It's not. It's actually inspiring, and it's got some heart to it. And at the end of it, I found myself having a real appreciation for Tommy Wiseau and what he did to get that movie made. And see, it's a wonderful film. It is a wonderful movie. It may get nominated for Best Picture. If you get a chance, go and check that out. I did not. Okay, what's next? Anthony911 writes, would you rather be Deadpool's roommate? Would you rather be Deadpool's roommate or let Chewbacca use your bathroom on a weekly basis? I would love to be Deadpool's roommate because, you know, no one's ever going to break in. Anthony R. writes, John, I know everyone is not crazy about the Porgs, but what about a Porg movie with Liam Neeson's voice going after people? It would be hilarious. Picture that for a second. Picture that Porg from the scene in the Last Jedi trailer, and it's going, rah, rah, but instead have Liam Neeson's voice coming out. I have a certain set of skills, or something like that come out. That would be gold. I'd go to see that movie. All right, Nathan Freeman is actually putting in a comment now, which you well deserve, sir. And Nathan is writing in. Let's see. People seem to forget that Tarantino blurred out there for a second. Tarantino's directed quite a bit of network television, ER, CSI, and Abrams' own Alias. Yes, that is true. He has done, and you know, I believe he did ER, as you put that in there. Yeah, he's actually done a lot of television, but he's, you know, as far as feature films go, he has never really kind of stepped out there and done you know, he's never done his original thing, or he's never done network stuff or shared universe stuff or existing franchise stuff before in the feature film. But he has done a lot of television directing, which you're right, a lot of people do make. And I just noticed the MX in front of the thing. So Nathan, you've been, I thought you were donating like $100. It's 100 pesos that you've been, obviously because the MX is there. Thank you so much anyway for the donate. I really appreciate that. I can't believe I thought that was $100. I missed the MX. All right. And final one, guys, don't send in any more super chats because I want to go to Twitter here in just a second. So this will be the last super chat I take of the day. Do not send in any more super chats. Save them for tomorrow. But Kick It to the King Productions writes, hey, would Deadpool with Ryan Reynolds be the easiest to cross over into the MCU if Disney/Marvel/Fox deal goes through? Helicarrier was in the Deadpool climax. Yes, and you know what? I had the writers of Deadpool in my studio, and they confirmed for me that at the end of Deadpool, that giant naval ship, that was actually modeled after the Helicarrier. That has nothing to do with how easy or how hard it would be to cross them over, though. I think, though, that Deadpool, just by nature and what kind of character Deadpool is, that's what makes Deadpool, what I think would make that particular character a lot easier to cross over, just because of the nature of the character. So on that level, I think it would be fairly easy, a lot easier for them to move him, because he's just a single character as well. You, theoretically, if Marvel wanted to, they could keep X-Men in a separate cinematic universe. But if they want to, they could bring in Deadpool with very few problems that they would have to work out. Okay, guys, I said no more super chats, but one more came in. I will take this one last one. Crimson ID4 writes, which was more divisive and or controversial, Batman Returns or Man of Steel? I think Batman Returns, there wasn't a lot of controversy. I think just most people didn't like it. So I'll say the more controversial one was probably Man of Steel, which you guys know is in my top 10 favorite comic book films of all time. I don't know why more people... I don't know why more people don't appreciate it for what it is. I think the movie is freaking brilliant. So anyway, okay. So, and then Nathan is putting one more comment. Hey, John, my donations are in pesos because I'm sitting in a Mexican airport. YouTube forces the currency, so don't get too excited. All right. Thank you so much, Nathan. I appreciate that. Okay, guys, I want to now get to some of your live Twitter questions. I still got some time here. You know what? My fucking show. I can go as long as I want. So let's check this out. We'll go down to the Twitter board and your guys' live tweets. Remember, this next one comes into us, and this first one comes to us from General Martin writes in, John, hey, John, do you judge a movie by the special effects /CGI/acting/writing? No, look, you look at a movie as the overall experience that it gives you. That's what you look at. I mean, you can have a movie that has terrible CGI, but it still delivers a great experience, right? Like, to me, I enjoy Justice League. Obviously, I went back to see it so many times, and it has terrible CGI. But that's okay. The rest of the experience was still great. There would be another movie where maybe bad CGI would ruin the film. That's possible. But there's no exact formula to a movie as, is it good writing? Is it good acting? Is it good direction? Is it good base story? Is it good visual effects? Is it good cinematography? Every film will have its own kind of unique mixture. The end of the day is, as a final product, what kind of experience does it give you? And different films will have different things that really contributed to that, whether it's the writing, the acting, and directing. Every film is like a snowflake. It's all individual, right? So it's really different from film to film. All right, next tweet comes to us from Joe Geiger Jr., who writes, John, will the 3 months between Justice League and Black Panther be enough time for the bad taste to fade? I think so. I think it'll be fine. Remember, not everybody hated Justice League. There are some lunatics like me who actually like the film and have gone out to see it multiple times. So not everybody disliked it. So it'll be a bad taste for some people. I think 3 or 4 weeks would be a long enough time. But yes, I think most people will be recovered from it. Those who didn't like Justice League, I think will be recovered from it enough that they'll be fine when Black Panther comes out. Especially with Black Panther showing up prominently in the Avengers Infinity War trailer. I think that's just going to get people even more excited. All right, next question from Twitter comes to us from GusGus182, writes, John. Hey, John, I'm a big fan. Thank you so much, Gus. I appreciate that. Have you heard about the Reddit article comparing the Justice League early screening versions with the one we got? Yes, but honestly, I never listened to anything on Reddit. Because it was Reddit, remember, where the first report came out that Batman vs. Superman is being split into 2 films. Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice and Batman vs. Superman Enter the Night. Remember that whole thing? That all came from Reddit. I mean, so, look, that's not to say that nothing on Reddit isn't authentic and real. Of course it is. Lots of stuff on Reddit is authentic and real, but honestly, I do not buy into any of these. I remember there was this big Reddit description about what happens in Justice League, and everybody bought into it, and then we saw the movie, realized it was totally not true. There's lots of legitimate stuff. There's lots of not legitimate stuff. So I honestly don't get too excited about any of that. Plus, I know some people at Warner Brothers who have told me what actually happened. And so, I mean, I don't get carried away by it too much. This next one comes to us from Bob Linton, 1995, writes, John, have you seen The Shape of Water? No, there were press screenings that were actually held a couple of weeks ago, and I was unavailable at the time, so I didn't get a chance to see it. I will get a chance to see it before it opens, but I have not seen it yet. Super excited about it, though. I'm hearing nothing but good things. All right, next tweet comes to us from S. McQueed, who writes, John, Scorsese versus Spielberg. My favorite is Scorsese. What about yours? Easy. Spielberg, I think, is the greatest filmmaker of all time. And one of the big differentiating things about Spielberg from everybody else is Spielberg has directed every kind of movie. From sci-fi, drama, period piece, comedy, romance, epic, you know, I mean, you name it, he's done it. He's done it all. And I think it's that type of diversity that kind of sets Spielberg above any other filmmaker in the history of the world. I think Steven Spielberg is the best filmmaker of all time. That's just my thought, my opinion. But hey, you can't go very wrong saying that you love Martin Scorsese. How can anybody look at you and say you're wrong for saying that? Scorsese's awesome. So if that's your favorite, that's awesome. All right, time for a couple more here. This next tweet comes to us from J. Miller, J-E-R, who writes, John, thoughts on the net neutrality vote coming a day before The Last Jedi? If you follow me on social media, and look, I don't want to bring in these types of issues onto my show here, but you've asked, I'll just say this quickly. If you follow my social media, you know that it is so important that you guys educate yourselves quickly about this net neutrality thing. Get in touch with your government representatives and let them know this is bullshit and that you will do everything in your power to make sure they lose their government seats if this goes through. This is terrible. This is awful. This is corporations owning everything and calling the shots instead of the government listening to the people. And I could go political here, but I'm not. But just check it out, inform yourself. It's very important. But again, I don't want to go too far into it because this show is supposed to be about movies and entertainment and the things we all love, okay? Let's see. Next one comes to us from Darth Farts 1, who writes, John, do you think Warner Brothers DC have to reconsider on their plans of a Martin Scorsese produced Joker movie? I think they're reconsidering everything. I think they're taking stock of everything right now. I don't even think Wonder Woman 2 is a for sure thing. Aquaman's a for sure thing because they already shot the damn movie. If I had to put money on it, obviously I think Wonder Woman 2 is going to happen. But, I mean, I don't even think that's 100%. I mean, I think they are reevaluating and rethinking everything right now. Honestly, I really do. Let's see. Last one I'm going to take actually came in on Super Chat. Even though I said don't send another Super Chat, I'll take this last one. This one comes because it's an interesting question. Just Plain Steve writes in, pundit versus reviewer versus critic, not mutually exclusive, but what are the differences? Yeah, see, I generally consider myself a pundit, which is I just give my thoughts and commentary on the world of movies, movie news, and film. I don't really consider myself a critic, although I do movie reviews. So you wouldn't be wrong to say I'm a film critic, because I do critique films, but really I don't consider myself a critic. I consider myself just a pundit, okay? I give thoughts, commentary, color commentary, points of view, context, whatever, to the movies and movie news that comes out. And hopefully, if I do my job, when you watch me do my show, you walk away feeling that you know a little bit more about what's going on in the world of movies and the context of which it's in than you did before you watched my show. Hopefully, that's the case. That's the point of my show. But I do some film. So there are some slight, and you know what? Here's where it makes it even more complicated. Different people might give different answers to that question, which makes it even more muddy, but that's how I basically see the difference between them. I hope that clears that up a little bit. All right, guys, that will do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. It was a long one, but it was a fun one. I had a really good time. I hope you guys did as well. Had a good time talking amongst each other, talking with me. sharing thoughts and opinions about movies. That's the most wonderful thing about being a film fan. Listen, guys, don't forget, while you're here, we've crossed 100,000 subscribers, but we got lots of room for lots more. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, click on that subscribe button. If you like these videos, click the thumbs up button, leave a comment and a thought below, share this video on your social media channels, and make sure you follow me on social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever. Simply, you can see it right there at John Campea. That will do it for me for today, guys. Thank you so much for joining me, and until the next video, bye-bye.